Welcome back. Today we're going to turn some junk into some cornhole boards. At least that's the plan. So in true family dad fashion, I have a bunch of scrap wood that I have collected and saved. Got a bunch of 2x4s here that are not in great condition. Some of them have been weathered outside. They all have some holes in them. And so I started by cutting a frame for our cornhole boards. They need to be a total of 48 inches by 24 inches. And then I have some of this. These were shelves. And this is like a particle board, a pressed board of some sort. So we're gonna use this. And obviously these aren't in great shape either, but we're gonna make this work. So the first thing we're gonna do is get this frame screwed together, nice and square. I've got some 2.5 inch deck screws we'll use to get the frame together. According to the regulation cornhole people, we got to do it at 12 inches, so right in the center of the board, and that has to be 9 inches down. That's where the hole needs to be. So we need a 6-inch hole, so what we're going to do. And so now what I'll have to do is come back and fill all these little divots with these screw heads. We'll sand this nice and perfectly flat and smooth. I'll fill in all the sides here. I'll sand all these nice and square, these corners that didn't quite line up. This 1/2-inch press board it's actually worked pretty good. It's pretty solid. I had to put some supports across the center here because the shelves were bowed a little bit. And so this actually sucked it down nice and flat, and I think it'll be a nice smooth surface for the bean bags to fly. We just have to make a couple legs for this, but we're just going to use some carriage bolts in here, and we'll have some legs that fold up into the unit so they can both store flat on top of each other, and that'll be pretty much it. Well, this certainly isn't a requirement, but I had some extra drywall mud laying around. And so I figure, why not square this up a little bit, fill in some of these holes. And since we're gonna be painting this whole thing anyway, I think it's gonna make it look a lot more put together when we're done. So I'm filling in this little crack between the two types of wood. Once this gets all painted up, this will help it to look more like one single piece between the two. Drywall mud isn't the optimal product for this, but once we get a couple coats of paint and some sealer on there, it'll be just fine. I'm also using this to fill in some of the imperfections in these old scrap 2x4s and some of these corners, make them nice and square. Since there's a couple different ways we could have put our top on, if we would have inset this down into the frame, there would have been a small bit of wood here that would be too different. The edge of the 2x4 would be along here, so we'd have a different grain of wood and a different type of wood between the two. So that could cause a little bit of a problem. Since we put our scrap piece of particle board here on the top, we face screwed this. We've got all these countersunk screw holes. Now you could just leave this as it is. Lots of boards are made this way, but every board plays a little differently. And if you leave all these little screw holes here, it affects the bag. So when the bag comes along the edge here, those will actually catch it. So it'll prevent, you'll have less bags slide off the edge. Every set of boards is a little different. Some of the ones you buy from the store are plastic, or different kinds of finishes on them and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people make their own boards and they make them in different ways. So that's kind of the beauty of cornhole, is that it is a true backyard game, and everybody's boards will have their own sets of challenges. So we're gonna finish getting all this on here. We'll let this dry for a few hours. This is real thin and real easy to sand. It'll be a nice quick sand on this, and we'll get this painted. Well, this is the pretty much final product here. There's still some updates, some improvements that I will probably make. A few things that turned out really well, and there's a few things that I would change in the future. My tape lines were not great, and I always have this trouble with I want nice crisp tape lines, and you can see it didn't really turn out that way. But we jokingly on Instagram called them the skunk boards, but they're kind of a referee colors. Of course, yours can be any color you want. The reason that I used the colors I have here is because this is what I had. I had some extra black paint left over from some cabinets, and I had some white paint left over from some trim. And that's what I used to paint all this. So it didn't cost me anything, and I like to use up paint as best I can. This is an enamel semi-gloss, and I really like it's nice and slippery. So I think it'll affect the play in a good way. The bags will kind of slide on here. So we'll see. I may put a clear coat. I bought some spray clear coat to put on here, but I have not applied that yet. We'll see how they play. We'll use them out tonight, and we'll see what happens. The holes are nice and round. Everything's pretty smooth. For being all junk wood, all scrap wood, all old, broken 2x4s and particle board and all that stuff, they turned out really good. Let's get them inside and see how they play.